on basically mobile, and then like anything else and everything else will be like a desktop view, even if it's a tablet, which is kind of what you're seeing in the kind of the.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. So
Yeah.
Craig Waldrop, great, you were able to make it in. It looked like Shrey may have grabbed the wrong Craig Waldrop account or something, but anyway, want to introduce you. You've met Shrey and obviously everybody else, but Libby, our UI UX consultant, is here, and as I mentioned, Craig is part of the kind of operating team at the parent level, that owns VIA3. So go ahead, Shrey. So Shrey and Libby are just kind of giving an introduction to everybody on the UI work that Libby's done here.
Yeah, you got it. So yeah, I don't want to take over this too much. I'll let Libby talk to most of it, but basically, like we have, a little bit of our design spec'd out, and we're, as you can see from this design, like we're kind of focusing on two main sections, which is going to be mobile and desktop, or like a tablet view as well. And so our idea here is to actually make it more competitive and kind of similar to things that you've seen before for communication platforms, so like Teams, Slack, Zoom, whatever. And so, Libby, why don't you take it from here? We can go through, we don't have to go through like all the screens, but we can definitely go over like some of the highlights of what we're trying to change.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Libby, so yeah, it's just high level, and then kind of from an execution standpoint, your main contacts will be me and Shrey, and then Shrey will be kind of integrating and with the rest of the team, right? So that we kind of have a controlled communication process.
Yeah, sounds great. So I think my first step sort of before doing any of this work that you see here is just sort of doing like a bit of analysis of some of the major players in this space. So I looked at Teams, looked at Figma, or I'm sorry, not Figma, I looked at Slack, looked at Discord, and sort of just got a high level view of all the sort of standards and conventions in chat and communication tools. Zoom was in there too. And so my first pass here was really just at sort of reorganizing a lot of the content in VIA to conform with those standards. Because I mean, a lot of users kind of move between these tools. And so it's really important to make sure that what we do with VIA aligns with people's expectations for a workflow like chat tool. So you'll see there's this left bar now. And I mean, all the colors and things in here are really preliminary. So you can try to divorce yourself from any initial emotional reactions to the color changes. That was just sort of me playing around, and definitely open to feedback there. But yeah, you'll see this left bar now, which is sort of the navigation for the tool. So that the darker far left skinny bar would be for different organizations. So if you had distinct groups of users that were talking in different orgs, you could move between orgs. And then that second green bar is for the listing of all your channels and direct messages. So that's where you would initiate a new chat, or you would see any activity that you had missed by the labels there that are bolded and jump back into whatever conversation you were having. And then this middle space in the light gray, right now, this would be sort of a landing page on a larger screen that would show you upcoming events. And then that content gets replaced by a chat if you select a channel or a direct message. So I think if you scroll over to the right, you'll see that.
Oh, yeah.
And then the goal is to have Gmail and Outlook integrations, right? That'll further populate that as well.
Right. Yeah. Actually, this one is showing you like what the third panel that you'd get if you clicked on any of the settings or help icons.
Yeah, sorry. This is the one you're looking for.
Yeah, and then this is a new chat. So if you clicked that brighter teal bubble at the top, or on a name saying you wanted to start a new chat, you could select your user and then get going. And if you go over to the right, you'd see sort of a general view of what a chat looks like. And so this is all just sort of an attempt at making it more in line and more competitive with some of the tools that people are used to using. And then we're figuring out next, like sort of the interaction, the transition between a chat to a live meeting. So that's some work I have in progress there. But the idea is that you'll have these little icon buttons sort of next to your chat field that would allow you to switch into a video or an audio mode, or potentially schedule a meeting. And then this is sort of a preliminary look at what it might be like to be in a large screen live meeting like we are now, but this needs a lot of fleshing out. The other big change that I'm proposing is how you access files and contacts. So if you go to the left at the top, sort of where you were, go to the left above that line of screens we just looked at. Keep going to the left, Here, this with the search interface, this larger white panel.
At the top here?
At the top, yeah.
Oh, okay, I see it, search, yep.
Yeah, so the idea here is that you have this search bar that exists in the same location on every page, but is sort of contextual to where you are. So clicking into that search, you could type, you could type a username, you could type a file name, you could search anything. But if you're in a channel, you'd be searching for contacts or items that are specific to that conversation. If you did the search from the landing page, you'd be searching the entire org. So the idea is sort of to let those contacts and files live in the background and be accessible at all times through a search interface. And then that way you don't have sort of that really hectic, cluttered view of all the items associated with the org that we have right now. And so this is an area that will be, will need attention and will be like a big new addition to the tool.
Would that be the only way to find files?
Yeah, right now that's the idea, is that you'd be, if you go back to a channel view.
Yeah, what if you're looking for a file that someone just added and you don't know the name of that file?
Well, I mean, do you see usually when somebody shares a file in a chat, it shows up as a line item in the chat. And so that would be like a new message. So you'd see the file inline in the chat.
Yeah, also it might be okay to think about adding like something like one of these guys to see like all files in a. We do have something similar like that right now for VIA3, so that's also something that we could consider. I like the idea of adding as a line item as well, so you can just see, sorry, you can see in the chat, you can just see like, okay, like this was added, at this time. And
what about a file hashtag or something, that would provide a listing?
Yeah, that's a cool idea. I mean, I use those sorts of handles a lot in Slack, like where you can do like /Zoom to sort of jump into a Zoom meeting, or /Giphy if you want to search for a GIF. So yeah, I think adding those sorts of like handles and sort of like quick actions would be a great idea.
Well,
Yeah,
I brought up the files just because the way our current file system is, you can easily organize all the files into folders and stuff like that.
Yeah, I did notice the files system. So yeah, I do have like some like preliminary ideas in that search interface as a way to like get to a browse all files. But we could think about making that more prominent if you think it's something that will be important to folks. Yeah, I hear you. Like, how do you, yeah, you might not remember the name. I know a lot of times when I'm searching for files that people shared with me in Slack, I usually do it by remembering like the context of the conversation around it. So I'll search for a term to get back to like that moment in the conversation. So yeah, that's a good point though.
Yeah, so right now we can also do like, folders and stuff like that. So that's why I think Joe is saying like, okay, maybe we can just actually use a view like this, but just keep it as part of like the channel. So
yeah, sure.
Just like I think basically there's like another icon here that would kind of navigate you and replace this.
Or when you do the universal search on the file header, you can have something that just says see all files, right?
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Keep it super clean.
Or like, yeah,
because we're going to be adding a lot of stuff, so we got to be really careful about weighing it down with a lot of icons.
Yeah. Also, I think the idea is to keep it clean. So our first stage is kind of using a materialistic look. And then the second stage is kind of a broader thing where we try to keep things less cluttered instead of trying to clutter everything everywhere. And so that is one of our primary goals. The video and audio conferencing will also need to be looked at a little bit. We do have an existing thing here where we do like device preview and you know, some device setup, and that can be part of this. I'm not sure exactly where, but we can figure that piece out.
Yeah, so I think that
So-
some of that is where I'm headed next. So looking at
Yeah.
the kind of conventions that are out there for video conferencing, and then seeing how we could revise that. And I know Ryan has mentioned he's really interested in how the video and chat overlay works on the smaller screens and sort of the mobile format. So I'm hoping to come up with some good solutions for that too.
I had another comment on projects. Do you know what projects are on our platform?
I think I saw one small email mentioning that, but no, I don't know a lot of the details about projects.
Yeah, because projects, they basically group the channels. So every channel is inside of a project.
Every channel is inside of a project.
Oh yeah, every channel belongs to a project, more so.
So, Joe, what are your thoughts about, it's more contemporary to use things like hashtags to associate things rather than, having kind of layers on top of layers. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, yeah, the hashtag will represent a channel. Every channel. I mean, if you're searching for a channel, probably use a hashtag.
Or a project, right? It could be either one. Or both.
Yeah. The only thing about projects, I think our entire system is like built around projects currently. So if we were to remove projects, that would just be something. I'm just letting you ahead of time, like everything is built around projects.
For sure.
Yeah, actually, my idea for this is like tags, right? So you can tag channels to a specific group, and that way, if you like look at the tags, all the things that are associated with the tag will come up. In terms of like your concern of projects are kind of like the starting point of how you create channels. Like every channel is associated to basically at least one project. We will have to do a little bit of redesign in the backend for that, and so that won't be the only big change. Like even if you even consider like the search context, like that will also be kind of a big change in the backend in terms of which APIs are searching what things in which context, right? So yeah, I think that's definitely something that Adrian and I can work out. But the idea is to kind of make it more competitive. So yeah, there will be some larger pieces that will need to be moved in order for us to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not married to projects at all. I'm just letting you know
Yeah,
that it is there, and that the project, that even if we were to use a similar system or keep it, we don't have to. I'm not married to the name either. Project.
Yeah. The one thing right now that is a kind of weird thing is you have to have a project in order for you to create a channel underneath it, and so we want to remove that kind of coupling. Like you should be able to create an independent channel and then tag something to a project, to a tag at any point. And you should also be able to like remove tags and kind of edit channels, kind of hierarchy. So yeah, that's kind of the overall goal of that piece.
Yeah, I mean, if we were to take that off too, we'd have to figure out how the users, basically how the users and channels, like pretty much how it all works between like private and public channels, adding people, removing people, stuff like that.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
With the project tags, would you anticipate that people could tag a comment outside of the channel with the same tag? Like I'm thinking about tags in like GitLab or something, like, right now you can search on labels that are applied to tickets to see every ticket that has that label. So like, I don't know. I'm curious to learn more about the project tagging, like if it's meant to sort of bring channels together, or if it would be distinct to one channel. Just noodling.
It's to bring channels together.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly without requiring channels to be, tagged. Like if you can have an independent channel, but if you want to group something, then you can tag it. That's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, what is happening is, let's say I want to create a new channel. Well, I have to associate it with the project.
Right.
And
Yeah.
what if I don't want to do that, right? Like I'm just creating a random project just so I can have a channel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're also introducing a little bit of the what's it called, like user profile or user settings over here. So currently, let me just bring up what we have. So right now it's kind of here with text, and so I think Libby is trying to kind of broaden that up a little bit by making it a little bit more user friendly.
Yeah, I'm trying to also just create a distinct space for it. Right now it gets like overlaid up on top of a lot of things, and it's a little transparent, so I feel like it's difficult to read. And also, like, it's content that's wildly different from all of the channel content that's over on the left, so usually you want to try to like create separate spaces for that stuff.
Right.
So just get some distance between the app controls, the system settings and things, and then the actual like content of the app itself. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then these are just some mobile screens to sort of like give you a sense of the way the navigation changes on a phone. You end up needing more controls here and sort of different nav elements because you can display less. So at the bottom, I think right now I've got home, which gets you to this org list of channels and direct messages. And then I have a calendar nav item to get to upcoming events. And then the search, which would take you into a search interface. I don't think I have that pictured yet on mobile. And then the same sort of the little action icons for either starting a chat or moving into a video mode. And then what the chat interface looks like on a phone-sized screen. And the idea is that the little picture of the person would get you into the system settings or your user settings.
Right. So I think these days the mobile views are kind of the more highly used. So I would encourage our team to kind of start off with mobile breakpoints for these guys and then move over to larger layouts, which will be similar, but
well, do we want this to be responsive, or do we want like a mobile view and a desktop view, or do we want it 100% responsive?
It'll be responsive.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just use the media queries for when we change from this to this, basically. Okay, let me see. Is there a few things that we haven't like really discussed too much? Is like notifications. At least you like for messaging, you'll see them as just showing up as bold, right? But sometimes that might not be enough. So like even right now, if I get a message like for example, Craig messaged me, it just shows up as like a blue dot over here in the messages, and that's a little bit hard to bring your attention to, especially if you're with everything else going on. So that's definitely something that I want to be able to see here. I know that Slack and Discord don't do that. They go with the whole like, let me just bold out the sections that I have new messages for, but we may want to do some sort of like toasts or something like that here, just to bring more attention to if you're being messaged. One feature that Joe's working on right now is direct calling, and so that may be along the same lines. Like if you get a direct call, we got to be able to kind of notify who's being called.
Yeah, I think Slack does sort of small toasts that say like you're being invited to a huddle or something like that. So yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yep. Let me see what else is here. Okay, so the one thing that I wasn't sure about was this calendar view. Right now we have like my upcoming events, which is really all I can see. I'm not sure. Is there anything else in terms of calendar, guys?
I think your audio cut out there for a minute.
No,
Oh.
we didn't get to the calendar app yet. So
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
that's gonna be from scratch.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Another thing about the mobile too, like especially for phone, if the navigation's gonna be different, I mean, I can see being a little responsive, like excuse me, like down to tablet. But like when would a user ever shrink their desktop screen down to a phone size? You know, I don't know if we have to be that responsive where it goes to the mobile view.
I think you're misunderstanding responsive. No, I mean, we should always design responsive. Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be like stretchy. That's not really what it means. But
yeah,
we just design it once so that it doesn't matter how stretched it is. It responds appropriately. But yeah, we can figure that part out later, Cody.
yeah.
But some of these buttons, like how do you get to like new messages and stuff like this? How would you get to this page?
Which page are you talking about?
Yeah, new messages. Or new message.
This up in the org header, there's this blue, yeah, right where Shrey's hovering. This is like you can click that to draft a new message, and that would take you into that new messages window. The add buttons also would do the same thing. So the add next to channels would create a channel, but the add next to direct messages would also take you into a new message window.
Right. Oh, I see. So yeah. I mean, I guess my biggest concern is like right now, like at the bottom, there's a home, a calendar. Like right now, this is all we have on the site right now. But eventually, we're gonna have more. We'll probably we're continually adding like more things, so more pages.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to add like a new page that does something completely different, where would that button go?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be helpful for me to know the long-term vision. So if you guys could give me a list of all the possibilities that might get added, it'd be easier for me to account for them.
Yeah, so what he's talking about is I think we have like a faxes.
Yeah, faxes, I
have,
sort of
like,
was imagining in the
folder
context of files. I don't really understand right now why we make a distinction between faxes and files. A fax is a type of file, right?
You can actually send a fax.
Mm.
We have fax integration services where, I mean, I haven't really fully tested it, but you can receive and send faxes.
Well, you can or should be able to send and receive files too, right? I think that's where Libby's coming from.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Oh, sorry.
Is your folders or your files management. So then you're supposed to be able to share internally, create folders, subfolders. Of course, not all of that is done at this moment, but that's the idea behind files. Then you have faxing. That's it's a separate app. It's an integration of SR fax into VIA3, where a client can send and receive faxes and manage it and disperse those files internally.
Right. So Craig, what are your thoughts about? I think the concept here is totally get it that mechanically and on the back end they're separate apps. But what about from the user experience that there's no real differentiation, right? That when you're dealing with files, you have the option to receive a fax, to send a fax, receive a folder, receive a or send an actual file.
Well, I was thinking in terms of user experience. If we're going to do more integrations or more app integrations, then they're going to have to be separate apps. It's almost like having an app store. So you can have, like, later on down the road, envision yourself being able to connect your Google Calendar and launch it from within the VIA3 platform, or your Outlook Calendar, or a whiteboard application, or Slack itself, right? If we're going to eventually build out an app store, we need a position or an area to either like tack it to the side as your apps that you can launch, or have access to, but there is a separation between an SRFax integration and just what we built as a file management, file storage system. So in terms of what he was saying too about the mobile experience, we probably don't need to give them everything in mobile either, just enough to get them to be able to use the common stuff and say, look, if you want the rest of these features, you know, switch over to desktop if we needed to go that route too, right? So faxing and all that, maybe that's not accessible via mobile.
Yeah, I know that a lot of times apps that have many integrations will have sort of an integrations page or a listing where, you know, if you want to switch to a utility in the tool, there's a space to get to that, but each of them aren't necessarily top level nav items. So it could be that some of those features are sort of nested further down rather than housed in that main menu. I think like that sounds amazing, that functionality of having all those utilities built in, but you definitely want to like keep a clear space for like the core of VIA and then all of the additional tools. So I think that sounds like sort of an information architecture problem that like we can address, you know, as we have a better sense of all the things that might be coming down the pike. But I hear
Yeah.
you on the real estate on the bottom down there.
Yeah, I think I agree. I agree partially here with what Craig was saying. So, like, you know, I'm not really even sure how much of a user base we have around faxes, but if it becomes a thing, then maybe we can consider introducing it into here. But for right now, like, if we're, you know, communication platform, then we should allow people to message, chat, and see what, you know, meetings they'll have in the current time frame, right? So that should be our main objective, and then after that we can kind of figure out, okay,
So just
where.
for clarity, there's a legacy customer that if they're, you know, they would need fax, you know, today, every day, right? So I do think it's ideal to, you know, kind of address the concept, but you know, if that's you know, if we need to pick and choose, which may very well be, we need to keep in mind that at least for that deployment and any similar ones, you know, you're gonna need to stick, you know, that you know, a button someplace, even if, you know, later on it transitions to more of a library concept or something.
Did we give Libby a demonstration of the intake app that VIA3 uses as well, which is basically a queue app for VIA3?
Yeah, I think it's been some time. I mean, our focus has not been there, right? It's been on the primary app, but
in terms of in terms of visibility of the app, though.
Yep.
So I'm seeing organizations on the far left and then channels, etc. But there's no area, even on the desktop version of the Figma, showing those apps like fax, like intake app, like maybe even live stream later down the road, because we did live streams, right? So we would need to be able to launch. The client needs to launch those too. I'm just curious where those would go.
Yeah, I don't think I'm super familiar with all this content, so this is something I should review for sure. This is the admin panel. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't want to throw too many things at your way from the very beginning, because I know this was already quite a bit. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Here. But I think we will definitely make that into our like sprints, maybe a sprint or two down, depending on how our implementation goes for this. I think it's definitely something that you can get your hands on. I just showed you a little bit of how to get to it, but in case you didn't get it, just your username, and then it should be. We might have to get you some right access, but that's where you can find
I
it.
want to say maybe I have seen this once. But so all these things on the left, project manager, intake, app manager, reports, those are sort of different modules of the that may or may not be in a customer install. Is that right?
No. So this is a whole nother kind of project that we need to look at. It's just been reworked, but yeah, all these kind of repetitive managers. This is kind of a whole nother project segment. So you know, we taking this a step at a time. I mean, you know, we just don't have the personnel. First of all, we don't have the hours of Libby, and secondly, we don't have the personnel to implement this. So you know, it's good to, you know, we showed you some of this just kind of early on, but Shrey, anyway, so we've got to take this a step at a time. I mean, we've got limited
Exactly.
resources, and it is what it is.
Yeah, that's kind of why I didn't get too deep into that, anyways. So yeah, let's.
Do you think the queuing might be important though for the new design if we have that early on when we implement the queuing, like for basically the redesign for the intake app?
I'm not sure what queuing you're referring to.
I could.
Nothing on the admin. It's all on the admin.
Shrey,
okay.
would you like for me to show real quick so that way yourself and Libby can see
sure.
the queue?
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, give me a moment while I set it up,
Yeah.
and I'll screen share here.
Okay, sounds good. I don't want to get lost too in the weeds with this. Just I do want to keep it somewhat high level. I think we have some good questions, but let's see. Is there anything else, Libby, that you wanted to go over? I think we have some other desktop.
Okay, so I think, Libby's here. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. No,
clicked my fingers over my touchpad and then I was gone.
Yeah, I was going to screen share here, which I guess it'll just, you'll still be able to screen share yours, right, Shrey? And then I'll show mine.
Yep, you can just click on Craig's screen share. You'll see it.
On my, if you guys see mine, I'm actually signed in as one of the Virginia admin users for the intake app. And you can see there's a little police officer app on the left side. So if a intake officer, there's two user types. There's an intake officer and there's a police officer. One does the documentation. The other one, of course, is a police officer with the juvenile doing the intake. And so there's two interfaces. This one is me as a intake officer waiting for a police officer to show up. And they'll be added to this queue saying that they're online waiting to be called in. So they'll start a video call. They'll start to share files if they have to when they pop up. Whereas the police officer types in their name and they're just sitting in the queue, says, please wait for the call to begin, kind of thing. So if you just think of a general queue system, just think of that's what we're using here as an intake app. So you can see here, it's kind of, it needs cleanup, but since it's being used right now, that's why I think it was referenced that we should consider at least putting this in.
So let's clarify this. So the goal has been, first of all, to get Libby started and get a competitive direction started. But I think the fundamental thought was, we're trying to bring Chargeify on so that we can get to a point to where people can go to the website, they can sign up for a trial, or they can pay for a level of service. And so when they get to the actual platform, that they've got something that is more intuitive and what they're used to seeing. And we can get some feedback, hopefully a little deeper into usage than where it's just still kind of clunky and whatnot. And that's been kind of the goal. And then kind of roll into these other extensions and certainly apps. I mean, there's we all have our favorite apps and tools that we want to have. And so in terms of DDJJ, this use case here, that's a legacy customer that seems to be good with where they're at. I think you had mentioned there was some positive feedback with it. So that was a lower priority. However, if you want that to be the focus and the implementation, we just need to be clear on it, right? But just with, Libby's got limited time, and, these guys with just a couple of leads we have now, we're very, we have way more work than we can fit into any single sprint, right? So anyway, if we just have to clarify kind of what the focus is and the priority of kind of the steps, right?
Yeah, and the direction is looking really good from what I'm seeing. I really like the look and feel that Libby came up with along with Shrey, so it's looking really good.
Okay, but Craig, just to be clear, does it make sense to start kind of at the basic entry level with kind of the initial focus of people that, once we get Chargeify, hopefully over the next couple of weeks, and, at least theoretically, we can get some people, some new users coming in through the website that, what the experience they're going to have is closer to what they're used to with a Slack or something. or is your preference, or do you think it makes more sense to focus on getting VDJJ kind of within this concept, and then we'll circle back to kind of the basic platform and potential new users outside there, right? And above all this, just to be clear, while we're talking about it, is to try to get these APIs that we need for this black space and a couple of these users, because those are the most direct path we have to some people that have their own customers, right? So, but anyway, so what are your thoughts about, I guess, the primary focus being on the kind of basic entry level experience, or VDJJ?
I think entry level, and the reason why I kind of say that is because we want to be able to build upon our user base and get some feedback, and also get out there, and instead of just focusing on one client, right? Because
that's what the thinking has been, and certainly, and as I've told you, I think there certainly appears to be potential with VDJJ themselves.
Always,
that people like that.
Yeah.
But it's the government is slower and tougher and all that, so that's been the logic. So try to get this baseline, and again, if we can get Chargeify and get some users in there, I mean, even if every single one person leaves and hates it, we'll find out, at least from some of them, why they hate it, right? So we can improve. And then with these other ones that the MedSign and Black Space, they have very specific requests,
right?
And so that's really actually a priority over this. We're just trying to move kind of in parallel to at least cover two bases, right? But we're stretched very thin.
Yeah, what we can do is probably do some prioritization. Like, let's jump on a call to talk about the features that are necessary for VDJJ, even if they kind of still have the same look and feel once they're launched, and we don't dig too deep into it. They need the apps, so we need to definitely provide faxing and intake app for them. But let's just discuss to what extent, right? How much time to really spend on it.
Would it be all right if we did that after we got kind of this initial baseline implemented? Because until we have that, that kind of that prioritization is secondary.
They're happy for now, so I say we just let them
continue. So let's get through kind of this first phase, and then we'll definitely circle back and prioritize, and then prioritize between, let's call it the commercial and the government. How we prioritize within those and across those.
Right.
Okay. Sorry, Shrey. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. I think that kind of clarifies my understanding too. I was going to basically say exactly what you guys were saying, which is phase one needs to be, hey, let's get basic stuff competitive. And then phase two can be, all right, we have existing clients. Let's go ahead and update their experience as well. But for right now, like we're kind of starting in this direction. I think Cody started working on some of the stuff already, but let's kind of continue along that path and get our basic requirements from UX into practice, and then we can then take a look at, all right, what's our next area of impact, and go from there. So anyways, in terms of a design though, like Libby, is there anything else that you would want to walk over, or if you have any just general thoughts and ideas?
I mean, for now, no, I think we've pretty much covered everything I have in this doc. I mean, my next steps, unless they've changed, I think, are to really firm up moving from a chat into a live video. So I have started collecting some screens. I don't have them in the Figma file yet, of different interactions across tools for that. That's feels complicated. So
yeah,
okay.
And that's okay. It is super complicated. And, but if once you get through that, then hopefully you've given us enough to get to the most basic kind of functionality, right? So I think it's very hard to prioritize because there's so much stuff that we'd love to have, but I think and Shrey or Craig, but I think that if you can get through, or when you get through that, then kind of the most basic functionality exists, right? And then we can kind of go to the next thought process.
Yeah, I'm hoping I will have some initial ideas on that for you by next week. And then I'm sure we'll need some feedback and some iteration there. And then I do want to think again about the file management that came up here, because I don't think I have fully thought that through now.
Yep.
So yeah, I feel a little not super firm right now on some of the like button positioning. Like when I looked at this again, I was worrying a little bit about the right now I have in the chat mode. Oh yeah, see here right now I have them on the left, and in the screens they're on the right, and I'm thinking maybe the left positioning is really the better place, because then it doesn't collide so much with like the send the message button. But sort of things like that, mechanics that I'm kind of still mulling over, and some of that stuff will be easier to like assess when it's on the screen and clickable too. But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot in flux, and the mechanics of that switch to video is a tricky one. This was a really interesting call. I didn't realize that you guys had this set up so that multiple people could share screens and you guys could toggle between them. That's pretty neat. Like right now in Zoom, you have to like stop sharing in order for
Yeah.
to share.
Yeah. So actually, we have a lot of features like this that are, you know, some are there, some are not there, but they all are. They all exist. You just don't see everything, and so we are trying to kind of expand that. Yeah.
And like Craig Waldrop said, so the original concept that continues is kind of this toolkit, right? So there's so much that can be added to this. That's part of the problem with a platform like this, right? Because you can almost use it anywhere, and you can almost add, there's kind of an infinite number of things you could add to it. So that's why this initial thought process and organization is so important to make it really intuitive for users. Not only now, but as we add more things.
Yeah. So Libby, I think I want to get these guys started on like basically this mobile and desktop design. The only thing that I probably see missing here is just the mobile design for the video. I mean, we can come up with something, but I think if we have something that's similar to this, but in mobile view, that would be awesome. And then we'll kind of have a rough phase one that we can keep it iterating on.
Yeah.
And we can take it from there. So I do want to like let Joe and Cody and myself show you like a phase one and have you walk through some of these kinds of things. And I think just off the bat, I know it's not going to be perfect, but we want to get as close to design as possible.
Yeah, yeah. I love seeing dev work in progress. I think it like really can be helpful in ironing out like what actual interactions should be. And
we'll try to get you something in the next sprint.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that sounds great.
Even if like not everything is there, but we want to show you like at least a little bit of something. So
and just for your reference, Libby, that means over the next 2 weeks here. So
that sounds great.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. That sounds wonderful. I really do think like sometimes these sorts of projects go better when like design and dev can sort of volley back and forth in the midst of doing the work. A lot of times, like
you bet.
Yeah, you feel like you're delivering a finished product, and then it goes to dev, and there's all kinds of like, gotchas. And so I think working in tandem is a lot more effective.
So I know Joe and Cody will have like a bunch of questions that I'll be able to answer, but there are also going to be a bunch of questions I won't be able to answer. So I will do my best to just like email you out as soon as I know, just so that we can work asynchronously. I know your timing is also a little bit crazy, but let's just start off with that, and then we can see if we need to adjust or if like a weekly sync is something that we need. But for right now, I'm gonna let you just kind of work independently on the design of this and kind of continue while we work on the execution implementation side.
And Libby, listen, your what you've produced and your responsiveness has been great. So you don't need to be stressing about everything's looking great here. So and we're trying to be respectful of your time, and that's why Shrey is going to be kind of the conduit here. But we're not going to inhibit communication. We just want it to be so that you don't get overwhelmed, and so it'll just be kind of managed through Shrey.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. I'm enjoying the work so far. So I'm glad
Awesome.
Pace is working for you guys. So
No,
far.
it's great. Yeah, you don't have to
Yeah.
apologize, and you don't have to stress over it. It's great. You know, the thing is, we've got limited resources, right? So we'd like everything done 4 weeks ago, but you know,
Yeah.
we're moving things in the right direction, and you know, that's what counts.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And Libby, we do have stand up like every day at 10:30. Like obviously you don't have to join, but if there's any you know,
What
time
did you
that
say? You're changing that to 9:30 or
Oh, I'm sorry at 9:30.
Pacific?
9:30 Pacific. It's
Okay.
every day. You're not required to join, but if you ever feel like, you know, you have time or you want to like input something or just drop a message into chat, like you're more than welcome to. We'll get you hooked up on this test
Okay.
account so that we can just keep that communication line.
Yeah,
open for
along
you.
those lines, these guys jump back and forth between you know what this is, what they call production, and a test environment. So it might be best to drop Shrey and I an email, but anyway, you'll get it figured out, and we'll get you going.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
but there's no, like he says, there's no obligation. But
Yep.
thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
And then, hey Shrey, are you going to do retrospective now, or what are you? I've got a call that I've got to drop.
Yes.
I guess I've got a few minutes, but
Yeah, I was going to start retro here
okay.
for our current sprint. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right. So thank you so much, Libby.
Libby,
have a great
It's
weekend.
Yep.
nice to meet you guys. See ya.
Yep.
See you.
Thank you guys. Okay, so